Yes, that's true, but that's only half of it. Sorry, I was being a bit tricky in hopes that you couldn't figure out which one was right. But yes, the authors had to leave some individuals with the same tail length and also had to cut off the tails of some and then glue that bit back on. They had to do both of these manipulations because if they didn't, they could never with 100% certainty say that it was the longer tail and not the fact that the bird was manipulated that had the effect in the experiment. Does that make sense? To say it in another way, if the longer-tailed male had greater fitness, the researchers could never be sure it was the longer tail and not just the fact that they were held and manipulated by researchers that had the effect. So to separate those two things, they had to manipulate some individuals but leave them with the tail of the same length. It's important to think about controls in your study when you run them. So let's get back to this study. And now that we have these 4 experimental treatments, if we take a look at the results, we see that males with an artificially longer tail had greater fitness, measured by the number of females that they mated with. Males with a normal sized tail had a lower fitness, but it didn't matter whether they were never manipulated or cut and glued back on. And those poor guys, the ones with the artificially shortened tails, well, they had the lowest fitness. Oh well. This is where you're probably asking yourself, well, if longer tails are so good, meaning there's strong directional selection for longer tails, why don't males keep evolving even longer and longer tails? It's a good question, and that's where natural selection comes into play. Have a think about the direction that natural selection had to move in, and that will help you understand why the tails of these long-tailed widow birds don't get infinitely long. I'd also like you to think about what these long tails could be signaling to females. But after showing you these 2 examples, do you think that sexual selection is something that only shapes males? And that females are only affected by natural selection?